We got some big news here coming out of the National Football League. Justin Fields has been traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers traded a 6th-round pick and a conditional 4th-round pick. It could be a conditional 4th-round pick for Justin Fields. Immediately, what do you think about this trade?
Well, I put this out on my Instagram, just from my own show that I do, the Ben Garcia Show on YouTube. I basically said, I was trying to explain to NFL fans, Bears fans, that there's just no market for Justin Fields. There was no market for Justin Fields. And we saw that it was reported that there was multiple teams interested in him, most of them as him as a backup. The Bears let him decide where he was allowed to go, and good by them, good by doing him right. But this is what happened with Fields, right? There just wasn't a big market. He has not shown, he's shown very minimal flashes that he can be a franchise quarterback in the NFL, but he's, for the most part, majority, 85% of his career has shown he's just not that guy. And teams were saying, hey, listen, you've shown your hand. We know you want Caleb Williams. You waited far too long for you to give up this guy. We're willing to give you a 4th, 5th round, 6th round pick, conditional 4th round pick, but that's it, because we know you have to get rid of him, because we know bringing back Caleb Williams is going to divide the locker room. We know he's had much support there from guys like DJ Moore or other players in the locker room, completely just idolizing Justin Fields. So you couldn't bring him back. You couldn't have those issues in the locker room. You couldn't have half the fan base split between Caleb Williams and Justin Fields. You had to get him out. You had to pick a side. And they picked the side of Caleb Williams, the right side, and they took their licks, and they realized this is all we're going to get for him. We're going to take a PR beating for a day or two, and then we're going to move on. I mean, am I wrong here? Are you surprised what they got back?
I'm not surprised at all, because at the end of the day, when a team knows that you want to trade somebody, this is the return that you're going to get. And, my thing to Bears fans is this. Ask yourself this question. If this is how the league looked at Justin Fields, why would you want this guy to be your quarterback still, when the league would look at Caleb Williams and say, hey, we'll trade 3 first-round draft picks to go get this guy. He's clearly a more valuable asset. The league looks at him in a much higher light than they look at Justin Fields. And there's no doubt about it, Justin Fields has some potential. But when you look at Justin Fields as a player right now and what he's put on tape over the past 3 seasons, you have to entertain the thought of moving on, which is what the Bears did, because they were in a very special situation to where they weren't a bad team this year, especially towards the later part of the season, and they were in position to get the number 1 overall pick. They can now reset their salary cap for the next few years here when it comes to paying the quarterback position. You have a guy who I think has a way higher ceiling, and you have a roster that you're building around this guy that I'm starting to really like. So I think that this was the right move. I understand why Bears fans like Justin Fields. He's a very hard worker. He's a very easy guy to root for. But at the end of the day, this is about winning Super Bowls. What gets you closer to a Super Bowl? Justin Fields and what you think he could potentially develop into, which he hasn't shown yet in the NFL, or a guy who we look at as one of the best prospects we've seen in a very long time in this upcoming draft. I think that they are now closer to getting to their ultimate goal, which is winning a Super Bowl. And is it going to hurt for some Bears fans out there? Absolutely. But trading Justin Fields and ultimately drafting Caleb Williams is the right move for this franchise.
That was a really good point you made. The whole NFL said to them, hey, this is what he's worth. We're not, who had a better market than Justin Fields this year? Desmond Ridder, Russell Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, Sam Howell, all those guys all had a bigger market than Justin Fields. What does that tell you? Sam Howell went for more than Justin Fields. What does that tell you? That the NFL is telling you, Bears fans, what they think of Justin Fields. And, here's the thing with Justin Fields. Could he someday turn into a franchise quarterback? I don't know. Maybe. It's all about where you land, where you fit. So here's what I will say. I think he has a much greater chance of being a franchise quarterback, fixing some of the issues he's had with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because what do we know about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Incredibly stable, great ownership, great front office, and a head coach who takes no nonsense from anyone. And although I've had my issues with Mike Tomlin, 17 straight winning seasons or something ridiculous for Mike Tomlin, he obviously knows what he's doing. Now, when you have a guy in Justin Fields who couldn't survive in Chicago, couldn't lift the dysfunction up of Chicago on his shoulders because he just wasn't talented enough to do that. Maybe Caleb Williams can do that, but look at Baker Mayfield. Neither of us, you and I both don't think Baker Mayfield's a bad quarterback. We think he's above that. We think to solve any argument, we all think Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback, like just there, right? Well, Baker Mayfield and his talents weren't great enough to lift up the dysfunction of the Cleveland Browns. And it's all about where you go. Does anyone really think Lamar Jackson would be as successful as he is in the NFL, two-time MVP, if he landed with the Cleveland Browns? No. It's because he landed with a stable organization in the Baltimore Ravens. So I like the deal for Justin Fields, and it sucks for the Chicago Bears, who have to take their licks for a couple of weeks, couple of days. Who knows? The Chicago media is not easy like it is in some of the other smaller states, smaller cities. But I mean, overall, I think it's a great fit for Justin Fields, and it's probably the best place for him to develop into a franchise quarterback. Although I still have my doubts, it's a much better place for him to go than, say, I don't know, the Browns or the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of those organizations that are historically incredibly dysfunctional.
And not only that, I think Caleb Williams is going to be in a very good situation here in Chicago. When you talk about teams with the first overall pick over the past few years, this probably has to be the best team that's had it in a long time. I think that the Chicago Bears are getting more towards being a stable franchise. I know that sounds crazy to say because of their past few seasons here, but it only takes really a season for a team to turn around and for people to have a different opinion on that particular team. Look at the Lions, for example. People have a much higher opinion on the Lions now. They got a new GM a few years ago. He did some really good things with that football team. And now we look at them as a team that's, hey, look, they're going to be a legit contender here for the next few years. And even though I've had my criticisms of Ryan Poles and some of the moves that he's made, I think that he has shown improvement as a GM. I think that this team is headed towards being a very good football team here. And like, man, if Caleb Williams has a CJ Stroud level rookie season with the pieces that they have on this team, they're going to be a team to be messing with in the NFC for a long time.
Yeah, let's kind of go to that conversation really quickly because I know you have a very high opinion of Caleb Williams. Let me ask you, do you think Caleb Williams is talented enough to be able to lift this Bears franchise up off the ground? Because given the fact that over the last 20 years, it's just been dysfunctional, they've never had a 4,000-yard passer. Is he finally going to be the franchise quarterback for the Chicago Bears?
Yes, I absolutely believe that because I do think that the Bears are starting to go more towards being a good football team here. I really believe that. I mean, some of the moves that they made, I've been a big fan of. They have 2 top 10 picks in this draft. They're going to draft the best quarterback prospect in this draft, and they could potentially add another guy to their offensive line. Their defense was pretty good down the stretch. I anticipate that that's going to be a good defense next year. And I don't think that this is a bad football team that he's going into. And I think that he's the type of quarterback that's going to be able to elevate a team. We've seen that over the course of his college career. USC hasn't been relevant in a really long time. And yes, it was a rough season for them this past year, but they almost made the college football playoffs in 2022. And it wasn't like that was a great roster that he was playing on. This is a guy that had to go into every single game with the feeling that he had to score 50 plus points for his team to be competitive. That's a different type of pressure that's put on a quarterback. I don't think that he's going to have that pressure going into Chicago. They invested at the running back position. They have some good guys there. I really like their play caller, Shane Waldron. He was with the Seattle Seahawks. If you can make Geno Smith look like a really damn good quarterback, which is what he did in 2022, I look at Caleb Williams' skill set, his talent, and I think that Shane Waldron will get the best out of him. And that's a guy who I think we could potentially be looking at as a head coaching candidate. So I do think that he is the guy that can be that franchise quarterback that the Bears have been looking for. And I don't think that the Bears franchise is going to drag him down because I think their franchise is heading in a different direction.
Yeah, Caleb Williams, the tangibles have always been there. He's an elite level thrower. He's insanely accurate. He's very mobile. I will never compare someone to Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes could quite possibly be the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. But man, he kind of does look like Patrick Mahomes and a lot of the things he does. It makes it look effortless with the way he flicks the ball. It just goes 60 yards just with a little flick. Some of the throws he makes cross body are such a high degree of difficulty that he makes. My issues with Caleb Williams have never been, does he have the skill set? My issues have always been the intangibles. We live in an NIL, get your money early. These guys don't come in incredibly starved and ready to prove themselves, ready for that second contract, ready to come in as the poor rookie, ready to make all the money in the world, ready to show their lead. Like, they come in kind of like, yeah, I'm the man. I won the Heisman. I've got a $7 million NIL deal. I'm not starving for money. I'm going to be perfectly fine. My issue with Caleb Williams has always been emotional. He's a little immature. I don't like the crying in the crowd to your mother. This isn't the oh, men shouldn't cry. Like, there's a time and a place for it. And losing your third game in which you weren't making the college football playoff already, you likely weren't making the Pac-12 championship game. You go over there and you cry, and then you go to the media and say that you just want to go home, eat ice cream, and watch movies like a teenage girl that just got broken up with her boyfriend, or it just, a lot of the things he did were so questionable. The painting on, I don't care if you paint your nails. I don't really, do whatever you want to do, man. I don't care. But when you paint on your nails, F Utah, that just doesn't scream franchise quarterback to me in an intangible sense. For me, it's just, you have to be more emotionally mature to be in that position. I don't care what a wide receiver does. I don't care what a linebacker does. I don't care what a running back does. Tyreek Hill, this is wrong, by the way. Tyreek Hill is on his second team and is seen as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And he's gotten in trouble for domestic violence 3 times now. And it's not a huge deal. It should be. It's not a huge deal because he's a wide receiver. But if he was a quarterback, it would be everywhere because you expect way more maturity from that guy. Now, that's a terrible thing, and that's something that should be handled. But for some reason, we all just look past it because we say, oh, vroom, vroom, very fast wide receiver, and he catches the ball. Like with Caleb Williams, he can't act like Kyler Murray did for the first 4 years, which was, I'm the best player on this team. I'm, head above shoulders against everyone else. I'm the man. I won the Heisman, $7 million. Because in the NFL, they don't care. You will have a target on your back when you're as hyped as a quarterback prospect as Caleb Williams has been. He's got to figure out the end. Remember, he asked for ownership. That was a real thing.
I don't think that was,
That came out later. That came out later on that his father had talked about. Listen, it was never going to happen. But the fact that it was floated out there, any of that stuff, I don't like the fact that his dad runs this campaign. I think it's weird. You can even, I just don't love the whole Caleb Williams shtick in terms of, I am this amazing God tier quarterback. You got to be humble coming in the NFL. Otherwise, you will get humbled. Granted, I do think he'll figure it out because men mature at different times, but it's something he does need to figure out.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point that you bring up about the intangibles with Caleb Williams. I just believe in his talent so much that I can deal, because here's the thing. I can deal with some of the higher than now intangible stuff because he's a quarterback at the end of the day. I get it. It's not great, but at the end of the day, it's not like he's getting in trouble with the law off the field. So I can deal with some of that if he's going to come in here and be as good as we think he can be. So that's where I'll counter that. But I do understand where you're coming from the quarterback position.